Leave Greg alone, Chris.
The implications of the Democrats taking Congress in the fall already having a positive impact even before they have. Here is Ajit Pai. He was brought in front of the Senate yesterday to testify as to why members of the FCC, his FCC, lied as to why the comments section went down during the net neutrality fight. Now, the big significant issue is less about this at the moment and more about the fact that the FCC basically killed, and it's dead now, but they basically killed it, the Sinclair Media Tribune Media merger, which would have given Sinclair Media something like 75% coverage across the country. It's essentially a second Fox News, but with the fig leaf that it's a local news channel that is not identified as Sinclair Media. So Ajit Pai's fear of congressional investigations has driven some, or prevented, I guess, some really bad policy changes. There's going to be more of this. I mean, this is what we're going to be talking about a lot if the House goes to the Democrats. It's going to be investigations after investigations after investigations, and it's not going to be BS Benghazi investigations for a long time. You won't hear about it much in the media because there's going to be a lot of those stories. Ajit Pai should be on his knees thanking any type of deity that he believes in, that Omarosa and McRaven exist, because no one's talking about this, because it's story number 12 on the list of things that happened yesterday. But here is, this is Brian Schatz, right? Asking Ajit Pai, how do you explain this, the fact that the FCC lied about why your comments section went down?
The question I have is, in terms of your relationship with this committee and the public, and in the context of a quite partisan, quite hot battle around net neutrality and the legitimacy of the participation of the public in this net neutrality process, did it ever occur to you to say, you know, I've got these doubts now, and so my declarative statements from before, I'm not so sure that I should stick with those, and I'd like to modify my statements. In fact, Senator Schatz and Senator Wyden, I'd like to answer the letter that you sent me. So at some point before the IG report came out, did it occur to you to communicate back with the public that this may not have been a DDoS attack?
Senator, on January 23rd of 2018, I was informed by my chief of staff, who had been informed by the Office of Inspector General, that they had suspicions that the former chief information officer's statements to us and to Congress were inaccurate. The OIG then requested, because they had referred this matter for potential criminal prosecution to the Department of Justice, do not say anything to anyone. Ultimately, the OIG, it became known they were developing a report and that they were going to issue this report. Once we knew what conclusions were, it was very hard to stay quiet. We wanted the story to get out, not only because it vindicated what we'd been saying, that we'd relied on the chief information officer's representations, but also because otherwise we knew that members of this committee, including potentially you, would think, well, he knew something was wrong, but he didn't tell us about it. So the position I was in was, do we breach the Office of Inspector General's request for confidentiality, in which case the accusation from perhaps members of this committee would be, he's jeopardizing an independent OIG investigation, including a potential criminal prosecution, or do I adhere to the independent Inspector General's request?
I know.
It's a difficult position to be in. I made the judgment that we had to adhere to the OIG's request, even though I knew we would be falsely attacked for having done something inappropriate.
Do you consider my line of inquiry a false attack?
No, I'm saying plenty of others have certainly not held loose about these accusations.
I guess what I'm looking for is some measure of accountability as the chairman. And I understand that you were in a difficult position, but I can't imagine that there was not another way to thread this needle and deal with us in our oversight capacity.
Senator, I guess my only request to you would be put yourself in my position from January 23rd until August 3rd or whatever it was the report came out. You have a request from Inspector General. Do not say anything to anyone. The story in this report vindicates my position. It was in our interest to get it out sooner. We wanted you to get this information sooner because it proved what we said. We didn't have the ability to do that. I could have done it, but then I would have been accused of stifling an OAG investigation, potentially frustrating a criminal prosecution. I did what I thought was the right thing to do, which was to stick by the OIG recommendation. And as I pointed out in my August 10th letter, and I quoted the very text on which we relied from May 9th, I believe it was, all the way forward. We relied on the representations of the former chief information officer, which in the OIG's investigation, and I would urge you in particular to read the memorandum of interview if you haven't. Those vindicate the position. We asked them, is this what it is? They said no. Have you talked to the FBI and DHS? They said yes. Those agencies have essentially concurred in our recommendations. That was not true.
Yeah. Okay. So there you have it. And I imagine that once the Democrats take the House, they're going to look a little deeper into this and see if that timeline actually fits. The idea that Ajit Pai couldn't go to these three senators and say, "Hey, you're U.S. senators. I should just tell you there's an investigation ongoing by the IG, and it looks like that. But I've been asked to be confidential about this." Or you could have written back, the Inspector General has asked that I not share any information as there's an ongoing investigation. Yeah. Right? That's the way that you do this. We see that happen all the time. So Ajit Pai, I think he's in for a little bit of a rough time in the next 2 years.
Agitated pie.
Agitated Pai, I like that too. I like to Ajit Pied.
All these senators putting their thumb in his pie.
Like to pie him, if you know what I mean.
Well,
That's
we
what the
went from
Ajit Pied
uncomfortably
was.
sexual to just sort of vague.